We're going to start with a bubble sort. So if I've got my numbers 4, 2, 1, 6, 3, 5, I need to sort them into correct order. Now I've got an algorithm there for a bubble sort at the bottom. It starts off with a swapped flag, and the swap flag is set to true initially. That's to make it go into the while loop. The while loop goes around while that swap flag equals true. First thing inside the while loop is you set it to false, because for that time around the while loop we set it to a default value of false. It then goes for I from the start to 1 away from the end, and it compares the ith number with the I plus 1 number. That's why it's 1 away from the end. So it was to compare the 4 with the 2, the 2 with the 1 with the 6, the 6 with the 3, and the 3 with the 5. So 3 is the ith number, and it compares it with the I plus 1. If it needs to swap, it does a swap, and it sets the flag to true. If it's done a swap on that time through the numbers, it will actually then go around the while loop one more time just to check until it doesn't make any swaps. So let's see how it works. First thing it does is it swaps the 4 and the 2. Then it swaps the 4 and the 1. Then won't swap the 4 and the 6. It will swap the 6 and the 3. And then it will swap the 6 and the 5. It's gone through the for loop from the beginning to 1 away from the end. It did do some swaps, so it's going to go around the while loop one more time. So it looks at the 2 and the 1, and it does a swap. It doesn't swap the 2 and the 4, but it does swap the 3 and the 4. It doesn't swap the 4 and the 5, and it doesn't swap the 5 and the 6. Now it did do some swaps, so it goes through the loop one more time. It doesn't swap the 1 and the 2, or the 2 and the 3, or the 3 and the 4, or the 4 and the 5, or the 5 and the 6. It doesn't swap any of them, so it's been through the for loop without swapping any. So the swap flag would remain false, which means it will end the while loop, finishing the sort. And all our numbers are sorted into the correct order. The sort is finished. Let's see it in action with a graphical representation. Next we'll have a look at an insertion sort. Now we have our numbers again, 4, 2, 1, 6, 3 and 5. And I've got the algorithm down in the bottom left hand corner. Now with this one, it goes through the numbers just once, and then what it does is it puts each number, inserts it into the right place. So as it works through the list from the beginning to the end, on the left hand side we have our sorted part of the list, on the right hand side we have our unsorted part of the list. Let's go through and see how it works. Current value is declared at the top as a variable. The for loop goes from 1 to the end of the list. Now remember, computers like to index from 0, so 1 is actually the second number because we're starting actually at the number 2 in our list. So what we do is current value equals num I. We start at this number here and we make current value equal to that number. We store that number. Also, pos equals I. We've got a variable called pos, and that says, right, where are we? And what we do is we walk back towards the beginning by taking 1 off pos in a little while loop until we either get to the beginning of the list or the number's in the right place. And what we do is we do num pos equals num pos minus 1. So where the arrow is, the number 2, that becomes the value to the left. So therefore, effectively, the 4 slides are wrong. And then pos equal pos minus 1, where we're looking at, slides to the left. Now as you can see, 2 is in the correct position and is actually at the beginning of the list. Therefore the final line of code is num pos equals current value. That position there gets taken over by the current value. And you can see on the left hand side, the number 2 and the number 4 are now sorted in the correct order. We still have 1, 6, 3 and 5 which are not sorted. Next step on the for loop is to look at the next number. That number gets stored into current value. It slides back while the number 4 slides along. Same again for the number 2. we've now reached, it's actually the correct position and it's the beginning of the list, so therefore that value overwrites the first value in the list. We now have 1, 2 and 4. The for loop moves across to the next number. That number goes into current value. It's actually in the correct position, so therefore it just gets written back into that position. For loop goes to the next one, which is the number 3. That gets stored into current value. It slowly gets filtered back and inserted into the correct position. As the numbers get shuffled along, when it's in the correct position, it overwrites that slot. For loop then goes on to the last one, because we're going to the end of the list, to number 5. That gets stored in current value. It gets inserted into the correct position, and finally our list is completely sorted. We'll have a look at this one on a graphical representation as well. I hope that was useful. I will be doing 2 other sorts quite soon. That was the bubble sort and the insertion sort. Soon I'll be doing a quick sort and a merge sort.